When I was a worm, I was weak, docile. Back then when I was younger, everybody made it seem normal to have this frame which is weak, scrawny, not beefy, just scrawny, skinny, bare to the bone. And I'd see all these guys with ripped six packs, they're jacked. The guys who are beefy. Everybody made it seem to be fine to be this scrawny stick. A scrawny stick who could be easily made fun of by any guy because all the other guys were a little beefier. But here I am, skinny as a twig. Probably almost anorexic. I can literally see my rib cage was... I take my shirt off. I can literally see my ribs. And I think I'm fat because I have this patch of belly fat in my lower stomach, like a kangaroo. And I just have this terrible frame on me. And I was just weak. I had been addicted to video games, scrolling. My average screen time was probably past 10 hours. 10 hours. Picture this. 10 hours of being on a phone, a computer, and I was just addicted, stuck. And for 10 hours, not 10 hours straight, but 10 hours. 10 hours of the day I waste on just being on my phone scrolling. And everybody else around me was the exact same. They were weak. They brought me down with them. This weakness I thought would never be cured, that I'd just be stuck, and that I just have to accept it. And I did so many horrible things that brought my overall strength down, beefiness, and what else? My health. I'd be eating pizzas, ice cream, and I'd cope when homework was too hard. I'd stare at the ceiling and just start punching my table, punching the desk, just starting to slam my fist because the homework was too hard. Because all I cared about were video games, quick dopamine, and school. That was about it. So I tried and I tried and I tried. I had a 3.5 GPA, and at the end of 6th grade, I had a 3.111. A 3.1111. So slightly below the average, which was 3.3 or 4. So I was slightly below that. And I only thought those things were important to me. I didn't think anything else was important or to value because everybody told me the exact same thing. Moderation is key. It is key, but once you allow yourself to get exposed to one thing that can get addicting, what happens? You stay on there for hours upon hours. Hours upon hours. I was just sitting, just doing this. And wondering why I had depression, anxiety, and why I felt like a boy. Wondering when I can grow up. Because I didn't understand. Video games were quite childish. Over time, I learned video games are childish, so I put them away. I don't waste my time on them. I start being more active. And guess what happens? My testosterone goes up. It goes up. And finally, for once in my life, everything is worth it. You're probably making this mistake right now. So right now, I have an actionable step. Look down. Look down at your legs. Are they crossed? Or are they wide open? If they're crossed, fix it right now. That's the actionable step. Because think about it. When you try and, hide and you try and just go like this, don't you feel pathetic? Weak? Cowardly? Anxious? Shy? Awkward? And you feel like a boy when you cross your legs and you try and, shiver like this and you try and hide from everybody. When you think about it, when you cross your legs, it decreases your test. It's obvious. I'm not going to link the research or any of that. So actionable step right now is to make sure you're not crossing your legs. The second actionable step is to make sure you're breathing properly. Now I know this might not make any sense, but when you're stressed, like high stressed, it can increase, but it could also decrease dramatically on your testosterone because of a hormone called cortisol, the stress hormone. See, when cortisol goes up, your testosterone goes down. Same thing with estrogen and testosterone. So make sure you're breathing deeply into your stomach. Which brings me over to my next point. Our ancestors, your great-grandfather, all of them dealt with loads and loads of stress, hard work, to try and bring their next generation on and on and on and on, and keep the cycle going. They had loads of stress at work, their school, everything. They had loads of stress, but they also had way higher tests than the average man today. Because think about it. Your great-grandfather, he probably most likely had around 1,000 nanograms a deciliter of testosterone, which was considered normal, compared to now, the propaganda, which is 300 to 900. That's considered healthy and average, which is considered low for back then, because 1,000 compared to 300 to 900, 1,000 back then was considered normal. Quadruple digits, 4-digit testosterone, not 3, 4. That was what was normal back then. You also have to take into account back then when they were stressed, when they had to hunt, when they had to hunt for an animal to get food, they woke up, empty stomach, ran, hunted the animal, and ate it later. And they were always in this high stress because the saber-toothed tiger could attack them whilst they were asleep, and they had to wake up to club the saber-toothed tiger. Or this problem happened with this animal, they have to get up. They just wake up to this high adrenaline, high cortisol scenario. Now, as I stated back to my previous point, cortisol, the stress hormone, when it goes up, your testosterone goes down. However, in certain circumstances during work and those type of stuff, it's fine for stress to be somewhat high. Somewhat, I'd say it's fine. Your testosterone won't really take a dip because, in general, back then our ancestors and our great grandfathers had way more stress tolerance as well. So, learn to deal with your stress in an effective manner, whether that be by journaling, meditating, getting out in nature, taking a breath of fresh air, and walking around, even if it's only 5 minutes. So sunlight. Our ancestors didn't stay inside for hours and hours and hours and hours like most average young men do today. Our ancestors had to be outside for a large majority of the day. There was less depression back then. There was peace back then. Now it's all changed. There's also another thing. You know when you touch plastic, what you don't realize is when you touch plastic, you touch a chemical called BPA. BPA is this chemical that's within plastics in general. BPA, once it's made contact within just skin, it's been shown it decreases your testosterone by a lot. I'm not saying you have to be paranoid and be like, the receipt. No. Try and avoid plastic as much as you can. You know, your shirts, your bed sheets, if they're plastic and you can't fix it, well then that's that. But as much as you can, reduce touching plastic. And if you're ever wondering what you should do, you're wondering if you would benefit from this, or you would do this, take action, or anything in life, just remember and ask yourself and think deeply, What would your great grandfather do?